Dakar. Promoting dialogue.
It's midday here in Dakar. Good afternoon and thank you for staying tuned to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world on wadr.org. Welcome to Newslink. First, our top stories. Ivorian President Ouattara wins majority in October 25 election, paving the way for a fourth term. Reactions trail Cameroon's President Biya's re-election amidst reported protests.
So Cameroonians fell for him because they needed change. When he comes to power, based on the promises he gave or he will give during the campaign, they will start questioning his administration.
Resident doctors in Nigeria to embark on indefinite strike on November 1.
This is the first time NAD is declaring a total action after 3 years. The last time we had a strike that lasted more than 48 hours was 3 years ago.
And Senegalese government says it plans to lower electricity and petroleum product costs. Please stay tuned for details of the stories and more.
Here is Imo Edit with Newslink.
Many thanks for joining our broadcast. We'll begin in Côte d'Ivoire, where incumbent President Alassane Ouattara has been declared the winner of the October 25 presidential election. According to the Independent Electoral Commission (CI), President Ouattara secured just over 89% of the votes. The commission also gave a positive assessment of how last Saturday's election was organized and conducted. Sankli Janko has the rest of the details.
These results come from more than 24,000 polling stations across the country and over 240 polling stations in the diaspora. Out of more than 8 million registered voters, just over 4 million cast their ballot on election day in Côte d'Ivoire and abroad, representing a voter turnout of 50%. The provisional results released by the Independent Electoral Commission say place the incumbent President Alassane Ouattara well in the lead, followed by the four other candidates who together share the remaining 11% of the votes. Coulibaly Kouibad is the president of the Independent Electoral Commission.
Monsieur Alassane Ouattara, 89,77%.
Alassane Ouattara obtains 89.77% of the votes, followed by Simon Gbagbo with 2.42%, Lago Adwa Henriette with 1.15%, Jean-Louis Bion with 3.09%, and Don Melo Sene Awa Jacob with 1.97%. Ouattara was provisionally declared elected in the first round.
Au premier tour, Monsieur Alassane Ouattara.
The Electoral Commission also expressed dissatisfaction with the overall conduct of the election, despite what it described as minor incidents of violence recorded in some areas, which did not undermine the credibility of the vote. Again, Coulibaly Kouibad speaks.
La Commission électorale indépendante a constaté.
The Independent Electoral Commission reported isolated incidents of violence, property damage, serious injuries, and some loss of life. However, this marginal and quickly contained act did not undermine the general will or the integrity of the October 25, 2025 election.
In the coming days, the Constitutional Council will review the results of this election before confirming or overturning those announced by the Independent Electoral Commission. The candidates have 7 days to appeal to the Constitutional Council to challenge the results declared by the Electoral Commission.
Sankli Janko filed the report staying in Côte d'Ivoire, this time for an analysis of key figures from the presidential election. President Ouattara was declared the winner with more than 89% of the votes, according to the provisional results, which also indicates that voter turnout fell from 53.9% in 2020 to 50.10% this year. Well, here is Wediam Heve Laconde, an independent political analyst.
On pourrait dire un score qui était tout à fait...
The outcome was predictable, largely due to President Ouattara's efforts to tightly control the electoral process. The rules were largely managed, and among the opposition, apart from figures like Simon Gbagbo and Jean-Louis Bion, the other candidates lacked significant influence. The results reflect this, as all opposition participants combined garnered less than 10% of the votes. The control process and lack of suspense likely discouraged many voters. A large segment of Ivorians abstained, believing the ruling party's victory was inevitable regardless of their vote. Overall, there seems to be a sense of electoral fatigue in Côte d'Ivoire, with elections associated associated with recurring issues, tensions and violence contributing to low voter turnout.
Wendy Hevel Akonde, an independent political analyst. In Benin, the Constitutional Council on Monday rejected an appeal filed by the opposition Democrats Party. The court's decision means that the party of former President Thomas Boniayi will not participate in the 2026 presidential election. The court thus confirmed the invalidation of the two candidates from the Democrats Party. In its ruling, the court found that the provisional list drawn up by the Electoral Commission had not violated either the Constitution or the Electoral Code. We go now to Cameroon, where tensions remain high following the re-election of President Paul Biya. The 92-year-old leader has been declared winner of the October 12 presidential elections, securing just over 53% of the votes. According to the country's Constitutional Council, President Paul Biya's victory extends his more than 4 decades in power, making him one of the world's longest-serving leaders. But his re-election has sparked widespread protests and sharp criticism from opposition parties and civil society groups. Major cities including Yaoundé, Douala and Garoua have seen demonstrations, road blockades and clashes between protesters and security forces. Rights groups have condemned what they describe as excessive use of force, calling for restraint and the release of detained demonstrators. Opposition leader Issa Chiroma has rejected the results, describing the vote as a masquerade and insists his party's tally shows he won the election. Well, WDL spoke with Cameroonian journalist Frida Leina Voma with Dream FM in Bio.
They want a change because the incumbent president has been there for 43 years, meaning plus 43 years. He must have ruled Cameroon for 2.5 decades. So Cameroonians, what they need change. That is why many of them did rally behind some opposition leaders, especially the one that became popular months to the election day. Election was on the 12th of October. Mr. Issa Chiroma Bakari, one-time Minister of Communication, one-time Minister of Vocational Training and Employment. So Cameroonians fell for him because they needed change. Okay. And in an interview I had some Cameroonians, I asked them barely how much do they know about Mr. Issa Chiroma Bakari. They said for now they need that change. When he comes to power, based on the promises he gave or he will give during the campaign, they'll start questioning his administration from that. Then what they need now, they Cameroonians don't just need a change. So they find themselves so frustrated. And I would say majority of Cameroonians whom we spoke to in the streets, in their offices, in their markets, they told us before time that they need a change. And they see Mr. Issa Chiroma Bakari as the person who can bring the change first.
That was Cameroonian journalist Frida Leina Voma with Dream FM in Bio.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
In Nigeria, resident doctors have announced plans to embark on an indefinite nationwide strike beginning on November 1. The association says the decision follows the federal government's failure to address long-standing welfare and training issues despite a 30-day ultimatum. WDL's Usman Omar reports from Abuja.
The Nigerian Association of Resident Doctors, NARD, says its members will begin an indefinite strike on Friday, November 1, 2025, after what it described as the federal government's failure to meet its key demands. The decision was taken at the end of a 5-hour extraordinary National Executive Council meeting held in Abuja. NARD President Dr. Mohammed Suleiman said the association's National Officers Committee has been mandated to ensure full compliance and enforce the strike across all health centers in the country.
This is the first time NAD is declaring a total action after 3 years. The last time we had a strike that lasted more than 48 hours was 3 years ago. So we were ready for that. We've been dialoguing for 3 years. But we have arrived here, looking for too much to just collect the basic minimum salaries. Our allowances, our due. We're not asking for new things. These are things we have agreed. Pay it. You have refused. Mr. President, they have been paying themselves their own salaries and allowances. It is us that are in the field working that they are not paying.
Dr. Suleiman accused some government actors of what he called exploitative policies against resident doctors and urged members to hand over patients and sensitize the public ahead of the action. The NARD warning comes after several short-term strikes in recent years over similar welfare disputes that disrupted medical services services across Nigeria. Analysts say an indefinite strike this time could paralyze the country's fragile healthcare system and spill over into neighboring West African states, as many patients from border regions depend on Nigerian hospitals for specialized care. For now, all attention is on the federal government to respond to the demands of the doctors in good time to avert the looming disruption to hospital services with its attendant consequences. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, Usman Umar reporting from Abuja.
In Mali, the suspension of academic activities for 2 weeks by authorities is provoking strong reactions. While some consider the government's decision necessary, others fear it will have serious consequences for the school calendar, which was already disrupted from the start by a teachers' strike. The suspension announced 2 days ago comes as the country grapples with a severe fuel shortage caused by attacks on fuel tankers by the JNRM armed groups. Christopher Teacher completes the story.
Having only just resumed classes barely a month ago, schools and universities are now facing another disruption. This decision was made by the authorities due to the fuel shortage that is paralyzing several cities across the country. In Bamako, many fear a further delay in the school and university calendar.
This will significantly impact students who are in exam after a long break. Now with this suspension, they are bound to fall even further behind. The real question we need to ask is whether these 2 weeks will actually give the government enough time to put measures in place so that we don't end up in the same situation again.
On the other hand, some Malians believe that this forced break was necessary in a context of uncertainty. However, they feel that this suspension should not affect the entire country.
The decision by the authorities to suspend classes in schools and universities is, in my opinion, a good move. The issue of accessing fuel is a significant challenge, and I believe this decision should not apply to the entire country, as there are still areas unaffected by this problem. Shutting down all schools across the country, for me, is not the right course of action.
While the measure is generating controversy, parents remain concerned about the fate of their children.
Children staying at home pose additional challenges. Without being actively engaged, they risk missing out on a significant portion of their education, which could heavily impact their future. The government must implement specific measures for schools.
For its part, the government is trying to reassure the public and promises a revised schedule and a normal resumption of classes on November 10. Meanwhile, the fuel crisis continues to disrupt the daily lives of Malians, affecting the transport sector the most.
Christopher Teacher with that report. Meanwhile, Mali has launched a new EAES biometric passport, marking a major step in modernizing its official documents and boosting travel security. The new passport, introduced under the Alliance of Sahel States, which includes Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger, replaces the French firm Indemnia with China's MTech as a new technical partner. Unveiled in Bamako by Security Minister Major General Daoud Ali Mohamedine, the passport meets international aviation standards and includes an electronic chip with fingerprints and a photo for stronger security. Authorities say the move strengthens technological sovereignty and symbolizes a closer integration among AES countries. The first passports were handed over in Bamako, where citizens praised the speed and efficiency of the new system. The government says details and application procedures will be made public in the coming days. The National Ports Authority (NPA) of Liberia has unveiled a strategic plan styled Reset. The 5-year plan, which will run from 2025 to 2030, is with the goal of transforming the nation's port system into a leading trade and logistics hub in West Africa. The $550 million initiative promises to modernize infrastructure, streamline operations, and boost economic growth, signaling Liberia's commitment to becoming a key player in regional and international trade. The project will see the development of inland container terminals, which will decongest the free port of Monrovia, positioning Liberia as a central node in the regional logistics network. From Monrovia, WDL's Abraham Parker reports.
At the launching ceremony, NPA Managing Director Sekou Dukle said the 5-year plan will modernize infrastructure, strengthen governance, enhance efficiency, and rebuild public confidence in the port system. He said a dedicated port infrastructure investment fund allocating 15 to 20% of annual revenue will finance critical development and modernization projects.
The NPA is currently investing in automation, digitization, and workforce development to remove bottlenecks and make transaction easier and faster across all of our ports.
In remarks, Liberia's Finance Minister Augustine Gaffon highlighted the reset plan's potential to unlock economic opportunities and attract foreign investment. The National Port Authority says it is actively seeking partnerships with government agencies, private sector entities, and international development organizations to ensure the successful implementation of the strategic plan estimated at $550 million. For Newslink on WADR, April Parker, Monrovia.
You're listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM Dakar and online at wadr.org. Here is a reminder of our top stories. Ivorian President Ouattara wins majority in October 25 election, paving the way for a fourth term. Reactions trail Cameroon's President Biya's re-election amidst reported protests. Resident doctors in Nigeria to embark on an indefinite strike on November 1. And still ahead in the news, Senegalese government says it plans to lower electricity and petroleum product costs. We do have the press review, a guest interview, and sports news. Please stay with us.
West Africa Democracy Radio. It's you speaking.
Don't forget, you can listen to us live on wadr.org and fuller live streamings on YouTube and Facebook. Back here in Senegal, Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko on Monday announced that plans are underway to lower electricity and petroleum product prices in the country. Sonko's announcement comes amid mounting pressure from citizens and demand to address the rising cost of living, which includes rent, electricity prices, and the cost of items. The Prime Minister emphasized during the launch of the National Social Stability Pact Steering Committee that this decision aligns with directives from President Bassirou Diomaye Faye. In the days ahead, measures will be implemented to bring down the cost of electricity as well as gasoline, diesel, and gas. Sonko highlighted that a commission was established 8 months ago under the Ministry of Energy in collaboration with several other government departments to address these issues. Staying in Senegal, media professionals from over 23 countries, including journalists, technicians, and regulators, are discussing the new media challenges and proposing achievable redress. The 4-day event, which began on Monday, marks the inaugural edition of Africa's International Media Fair, hosted by the Senegalese government. Held under the theme Africa Faces New Media Challenges, the fair aims to strengthen Africa's media ecosystem and promote an authentic African narrative. This event comes at a time when misinformation continues to endanger press freedom and access to information on the continent. Augustine Coley attended the opening session and filed this report.
The purpose of this event is to establish Senegal as a media hub and to promote integration within the African media community. Adapting to digital platforms, competition from social media and influencers, and opportunities in data and AI journalism will be discussed by delegates and participants. Senegal's Minister of Communications, Telecommunications and Digital Economy, Alioune Sall, emphasizes the importance of building a sovereign African media ecosystem.
Faced with this challenge, the role of the press becomes more crucial than ever. So I call upon the shared responsibility of the journalists, but also of the public authorities and the actors of digital platforms. Together, we must promote a media environment that protects freedom of expression while fighting firmly against the discourses that divide and destroy.
In addition to these new challenges, access to information remains a significant issue that is not only in the Central Sahel region, but also in other areas across the continent. Liberia is among many African nations facing this growing challenge, despite concrete efforts by the government, says Daniel Sano, Liberia's Deputy Minister of Information.
The government enacted the Freedom of Information Law that grants legal right to citizens to access information from all sectors. Despite the existence of the law, implementation faces significant obstacles. The appointing authority of various government entities have not been able to set up information offices at the various entities. So sometimes when an information is requested from a particular government entity, it takes time.
The first edition of the International Africa Media Fair highlights the evolving role of the media in a rapidly changing digital environment. At the conclusion of the event on Thursday, October 30, government representatives are expected to sign a series of commitments to ensure the training and professionalization of journalists and to restore trust between citizens and the media.
Augustine Cooley filed a report. Cotonou, the capital of Benin, has been hosting the 6th edition of the Climate Change Africa Summit since Monday. This event brings together more than 1,000 stakeholders committed to the fight against climate change. At the heart of the discussions during this continental gathering are resilience, green energy and biodiversity. Francis Boniface completes the story.
The 6th edition of the Climate Change Africa Summit is being presented as the largest gathering of non-state climate actors on the continent. More than 1,000 participants, including local authorities, NGOs, businesses, and funders, among others, have been meeting since yesterday to reflect on how to transform the climate shock into prosperity. The objective of the meeting is to develop concrete solutions to strengthen Africa's resilience and accelerate its ecological transition. The Cotonou Summit is structured around three fundamental themes: adaptation to climate change, the development of renewable energies, and the preservation of biodiversity. Raphael Akotenyon is Benin's Minister of Decentralization and Local Governance. Panels on vital issues such as urban resilience, sustainable food systems, and access to energy are being led by experts. Among the first recommendations made is the transformation of climate challenges into opportunities for green growth and energy sovereignty.
WDL's Aziz Adam Studies report and voiced by Francis Boniface.
This is the newspaper review. Stay abreast and find out what the top stories are in your country.
This is the newspaper review.
The newspaper review.
Well, we head back to Monrovia, where Brown Park is on standby for the newspaper review.
Thank you for joining us for Liberia's capital, Monrovia. This edition begins with Heritage newspaper, and it goes with these stories. Government of Liberia loses US $5.3 million on uninsured vehicles. Attempting to steal in yellow machines deal, Henry Costa, a supporter of the Bouaka government, demands military dismissal. The next stop in Front Page Africa newspaper: unfair disqualification. Allegations of irregularities clout 285 yellow machines bay, local firm claims. Signed with our consent, tensions rise in Grandida County over 500-acre land deal as a superintendent and locals clash on claims. Up next is the Africa Daily. Railway deal ratification begins. Access to boost regional trade and connectivity. NASCAR bus linked to Bouaka's private home project in Lofa. And Stand, a civil society group in Liberia, demands immediate termination of Oronto oil deal. Moloba Molo says the deal is not in the interest of the country. Our next and last stop, Nations News. National Port Authority launches strategic plan. Ivanhoe's deal reaches the Senate, more jobs expected, and discussion to abolish the death penalty held. Well, that does it for this edition of Press Review from Liberia's capital, Monrovia. Thanks so kindly for joining us, and it's back to you in studio.
Many thanks, Abraham Parker.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is a guest.
Well, we take you back to Cote d'Ivoire, where President Alassane Ouattara secured a landslide victory in the just concluded presidential election, winning more than 89% of the votes, according to the Independent Electoral Commission. The announcement, however, sparked a wave of mixed reactions across the country, with supporters celebrating what they call a vote of confidence in Ouattara's leadership, while sections of the opposition and civil society raised concerns about democratic space and political inclusivity. For many, while Ouattara's victory doesn't come as a surprise, however, others like Austin Aigbe, Wadr's liaison lead to ECOWAS, feel it's time for oppositions to re-strategize.
I think the opposition should accept the result and move on. The difference in the margin is too much. There was really no opposition in the election. It was an outright win for Alassane Ouattara. Whether they like him or not, I think it's too late for opposition. Opposition should stop. They should avoid any form of protesting because the opposition literally did not participate in that election. You cannot boycott an election that you cannot fight in an election that you did not participate in. It's clear evidence that the opposition pulled out from the process. Look at the margin of vote. There's no proximity, and I think the opposition should just relax, organize ahead of the next elections, and ensure that Ouattara does not change the constitution, creating another third term bid, or removing the clause of term limit from the constitution. It's about time that opposition just organize themselves and ensure that moral courage does exist in the constitution, the Ivorian constitution. Never again should there be any review or reform that removes the term limit.
Indeed, Mr. Austin, but are there lessons to be learned, especially for oppositions in Cote d'Ivoire and perhaps other countries in the sub-region going into elections?
Lots of lessons for other countries in the region. Lots of lessons, particularly countries with upcoming elections, maybe whether it's going to be this year or next year. For instance, in Benin, hopefully the election will be sometime in April next year. Guinea-Bissau, we don't know when the election will hold, or in Guinea itself, which election we're hoping will be in December. Opposition political party should participate in the process. If you boycott the process, then do not argue in the process. You either boycott and go to court so that the process is suspended and the views that you have atomized are raised. Don't complain later when you boycott an election. It will be unfair that you boycott an election and then you are organizing protests. That is what we in our local parlors we say medicine after death. Elections are coming in many parts of the sub-region. Whether it's going to be in Nigeria 2027, opposition must organize. Whether you call it a one-party state in Nigeria, with what opposition are already talking about, that Nigeria is heading towards a one-party state, but there are opposition. Do not boycott the election. Organize and mobilize citizens. Look at the Cote d'Ivoire election. In many parts, particularly in Babo's area, where voters did not turn up. But again, we need to also verify that number, that about 4 million Ivorians turn out to vote. Can that be true? Those are another fact. I'm not sure of any organization that ran PVT, parallel voter tabulation. I'm not too sure. But we still need to investigate whether the total number of turnout is actually can be classified as correct. 4 million plus. That's a huge number from where Ouattara had called over 3 million. It's important to check that because in many parts, even in the capital city, turnout was also not very high. In the other regions, in many parts of the regions, turnout was low. I think citizens were generally, apart in that election was clear that you have more than 50% of turnout is something that we should need to talk about. Is that correct? And that should only be the only argument. Otherwise, opposition should not protest against this election. They did not participate in it.
Austin Aigbe Wadr's liaison lead to ECOWAS. And in sport, Nigeria's under-17 women's team, the Flamingos, face Italy tonight in Rabat for a place in the quarterfinals of the FIFA Under-17 Women's World Cup. Kickoff time is 8 p.m. local time, same as in Abuja. Italy top Group A, while Nigeria advanced as one of the best third-place teams after a 4-0 win over Samoa. And that's it on this edition of Newslink from West Africa Democracy Radio, 94.9 FM Dakar. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Mustafa Sek and Ismaila Kamara for the technical support. Let's keep the conversation coming on all of our social media platforms, X, Instagram, @WDR English. I am Imo Edit. Good afternoon.
And many thanks to you for listening to Newslink via Hot 104.3 FM, Newmi FM 94.0,
Hilltop Radio 104.7 FM,
and Veritas Radio 102.9 in Banjul, the Gambia. We also appreciate our listeners in Liberia via Alternative Youth Radio 98.9 FM, Lofa County,
Radio Kaigama 94.5 FM, Niba County, DCN Radio 91.3 FM, Riverside County, Wakat FM Radio, Banga, Liberia, Radio Baf FM 91.3 Sierra Leone in Nigeria, and Love 104.5 FM Abuja.
For you listening via Radio Pad 95.1 Damango, Savannah region, and on Royals FM 104.7 Wenchi, Ghana, we say a big thank you. Remember, West Africa Democracy Radio is all about you, your views, and your opinions.